So Trump's only been in office for 6 weeks. Seems like 6 years, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And he's been going around with his cronies touting his so-called landslide and blowout win. But he won the popular vote by 1.5%, one of the smallest ever. And he won the general election by less than 50%. So what kind of mandate is this really?
Well, it is a mandate, and I'm going to explain why. And I don't mind the question, but let me be very clear. I'm no supporter of Trump. I'm a supporter of truth and the facts. And here's the fact.
Whoopi Goldberg, long celebrated as the queen of unscripted quips and unfiltered hot takes, may have finally met her match. And the collision was nothing short of explosive. Enter Stephen A. Smith, a man known less for subtlety and more for rhetorical uppercuts. What happened next wasn't just a debate, it was a detonation. A slow-motion verbal collision where Whoopi's self-assurance met Stephen A.'s unstoppable force and lost.
The man won every swing state. He increased in terms of his voter turnout in his favor from the standpoint of blacks, Latinos, and young voters. He increased his numbers in that regard from 2020. 89% of the counties shifted to the right. That's a mandate. We can sit up there and play around all we want to. In 2020, Trump didn't win the popular vote. He didn't win the electoral college vote. A matter of fact, the Republicans hadn't won the popular vote, if I remember correctly, since 2004. But they did this year. So 20 years after they last won the popular vote, they won the popular vote. They won the electoral college vote. The man won every swing state. And on top of it, 89% of the counties shifted against. I don't understand how people can look at that and say, there's no mandate. There's a mandate.
What's a different definition?
For years, Whoopi has ruled the view like a monarch in a crown woven from sarcasm and self-importance. She's never shied away from controversy and rarely hesitates to issue bold, sweeping proclamations with all the gravitas of a Supreme Court ruling. But what she didn't see coming, what none of us did, was Stephen A. stepping into the ring and leaving her momentarily muted. Yes, muted.
Citizens, particularly on the left, are desperate. And I mean it when I say it. I think I can beat them all. And I have no desire whatsoever to run for office. I am not a politician. I am not qualified. But I know this much: when you consider who's on the other side and how he's gotten away with saying very little in terms of being coherent and articulating his thoughts clearly and concisely and what have you. This is not something that he's known to do. Yet and still, he has owned the Republican Party since 2015. Not only has he won, the Republican constituency has said, we don't want any.
Think about it. The same woman who has turned daytime debate into a professional sport was left blinking in disbelief. This wasn't some random spat. This was an intellectual power surge. Stephen A., a man who can turn any topic into a championship match, brought the full force of his verbal arsenal, and Whoopi had nothing.
What does that say about the Republican Party?
It's not about what it says about the Republican Party. It's about what it says about the Democratic Party.
Why?
Because in the end, if you think about him being impeached twice, 34 felony counts or 34 felony convictions, and they still elected him president, it's not about him winning. It was an indictment against the Democratic Party and what the Democratic Party was offering the American citizens. We might sit up there and talk about, hey, you should be a party for the working class, which the Democratic Party was once known for. They're not known for that right now. Why? Because their message was catering towards others and towards other issues, and they forgot about the people that brought them there, that elevated the Democratic Party to what it was over these last few.
Let's peel this back. The moment began innocently enough, as all great disasters do. Whoopi took her seat at the table, prepared to dispense another one of her self-styled truth bombs. With that signature mix of theatrical conviction and smug delivery, she let fly a statement so bold, so recklessly confident, that you could practically hear the outrage assembling on Twitter in real time.
Stephen A., your thoughts on the election as it just went down?
I was surprised at how lopsided it was. I was not surprised by the outcome. I saw the outcome coming from a mile away. You have to take into account, listen, we respect our president, Joe Biden, but here's the reality. He got into office. He promised to be a transitional president, to be a stopgap to pave the way for somebody else to come on board. Into the midterms, it was supposed to be a red wave. It did not happen. The Democrats was flying high. He felt the momentum because he was the incumbent. And instead of leaving, he decided to stay. When he decided to stay, the Democrats were in a quandary because they were expecting him to leave. Now he wants to stay. They're around him they're seeing the fastball has dissipated to some degree. They're seeing that he's not what he used to.
She probably thought she nailed it, that moment where she leans back in her chair, satisfied, waiting for her co-hosts to bask in the glow of her perceived brilliance. But then, like a tidal wave crashing into a sandcastle, Stephen A. Smith entered the chat. And when he speaks, it's never just commentary, it's performance art. A buffet of facts, spiced with motivational preacher energy, garnished with ruthless logic. And this time, he wasn't letting Whoopi have the last word.
You know how uncomfortable all those women in the panel were by literally sitting next to a black man that's not just going to nod on like a bobblehead and go along with all their Democrat talking points? So look, the Democrats have a black male problem, right? Everybody knows that. And Stephen A. Smith has been very savvy in kind of like coming from the sports commentator world. He's extremely successful, and then kind of putting himself into the space where I'm going to say I am not for Trump, but I am going to sit here and I'm going to tell you the truth about everything that is going on right now. It's very savvy because, and this is where I'll throw the black card down on the table. If you are a black man, Democrats have absolutely nothing to offer.
Then came the moment. With the calm precision of a surgeon and the impact of a sledgehammer, Stephen A. launched into a takedown so devastating it could be taught in debate classes. Whoopi, still in her moment of self-celebration, didn't even see it coming. She was blindsided, the look on her face. That rare blend of shock, confusion, and silent defeat. A look not often seen on someone so used to having the last word.
Today about politics, and you said that you were not shocked that Trump won, but you were stunned that it was a landslide. Why do you think most people didn't see it coming?
Because the pollsters told us, and we believed them, that it was going to be a tight race. They were in panic mode. And the reason why so many people were in panic mode was because the tighter the race, the more chaos presumably would ensue, because he would automatically say it was rigged. He would challenge the outcome of the election. We all knew this. And as a result, folks were fearful that it was going to be a replica of 2020.
Stephen A. didn't just counter her point, he incinerated it. He broke it down, set it ablaze, and roasted marshmallows over the ashes. And Whoopi. She was left scrambling for the conversational lifeboat, but it had already sailed. Let's be fair, this wasn't just anyone calling her out. This was Stephen A. Smith, a man who could debate the weather forecast and have you questioning the nature of clouds. She didn't just lose the argument, she lost the room. Hate. And of course the internet did what the internet does best. It erupted. Twitter went nuclear. TikTok spun it into sound bites and memes. Whoopi's stunned face became the new shocked Pikachu. It was the kind of cultural moment that doesn't just trend. It etches itself into the digital collective memory. And the best part, Stephen A. didn't even gloat. No smug victory dance. He simply dropped the mic with his words and moved on, like a champion who doesn't need applause to know he won.
I must confess, I wish I could debate some of these guys. I'd love to be on a debate stage going up against these guys with
Don't
the
say that,
presidency on
because
the
you
line.
know we will arrange that.
I'm half joking, but I kind of mean it. I mean, I have no desire to be a congressional figure or a senator. But if you came to me and you told me I had a legitimate shot to win the presidency of the United States of America, I would definitely consider it. But here's the problem.
So you want to break through the line?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
As for Whoopi, she tried to recover. She tried to pivot. She threw out a few weak lines, reaching for her usual snark, hoping to patch up the hole in her credibility. But it didn't work. Her co-hosts saw it. The audience felt it. That rare, awkward tension where everyone knows someone just got intellectually pantsed on national television. Her words felt empty, desperate even. And Stephen A., he barely blinked.
Really don't like to acknowledge that on the left. And that's when Al Green got up there and started harassing Trump. This was debated, interestingly, the other day when Stephen A. Smith went on The View. And Joy Behar, she too pushed back. And even on this morning's The Daily, Maggie Haberman was pushing back on just how historic the victory. They really don't want to say historic. They don't want to say mandate. They don't want to say any of the things that Trump says. And they put it under the guise of like fact.
Her next move, a classic deflection. A snarky one-liner meant to mask the stumble. I didn't come here for a lecture, she might have muttered, hoping to recapture some authority. But the room was dead silent. The audience unmoved. Her usual charm had evaporated, replaced by the awkward fumble of someone clinging to the last scraps of composure. She shifted topics, rambled about something, anything, hoping the panel would move on. But no one was buying it.
Later on, that's always been his MO,
Wow.
and that's what we've seen.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to what you said about black men being very comfortable with matriarchy, and I agree with that because, you know, black households are often led by a grandmother,
Yes.
black grandmother or black mother. However, 55% of Latino men voted for Trump. Why do you think that happened?
Well, I think that economically, they were looking at things. First of all, you've got, in this country, you've got Cubans, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Guatemalans, Venezuelans, Colombians, et cetera, et cetera. And if you talk to the Hispanic community, depending on who you're talking to, they think differently. The Cubans think differently than the Dominicans. The Dominicans think different than Colombians. To some, the economy was a priority. To some, believe it or not, it was the border.
Meanwhile, Stephen A. sat there in stillness. No need to brag, no need to shout. He didn't even smirk. He just leaned back, arms crossed, radiating the quiet satisfaction of a man who knows he won before the conversation even began. It was the kind of unspoken victory that didn't need commentary. Whoopi floundered. Stephen A. floated. The contrast couldn't have been
Certainly with
clearer.
identity politics, woke culture, cancer culture, I thought that was something that ravaged our nation psychologically, because you had people literally scared they were going to lose their jobs if they pronounced the wrong pronoun, for crying out loud. It got that bad, and I think that that's one of the reasons that Donald Trump is in office today, because so much stuff, a lot is focused on the individual as opposed to actual policies itself. I'm talking about what they preached and what they talked to the American people.
The aftermath, pure theater. Whoopi, scrambling to regain control, could barely muster a coherent follow-up. She grasped at threads, tried to reboot the conversation, but the damage was done. Stephen A. had landed the knockout without breaking a sweat. And for the audience, whether they loved Whoopi, hated her, or just watched for the drama, it was a spectacle.
The virtue of Stephen A. Okay, and I don't mean to, like, you know, canonize this guy. And I'm afraid, because I know what happens when somebody's getting elevated, there's now a price on you to bring you down. And I don't want to see that for him. So that's why I'm shy on this. But he is also a reminder that reasonable should be a commodity. It should be a commodity. The fact that, you know, you got to be full on MAGA or you got to want to kill Trump. You know, last night I said, I want the president to be successful in making the economy stronger for as many workers.
In the end, Stephen A. didn't just win the argument. He claimed the moment, the stage, and the spotlight. Whoopi, long the unchallenged queen of the table, was left blinking in the debris of her own hubris. And the lesson? If you're going to throw around big statements, be ready when someone like Stephen A. Smith shows up with a reality check so powerful, it leaves even the boldest pundits speechless.
Why the recent interviews took place? Because most of the people I was interviewing was on the left. You didn't write about it then. And when you see people using sound from me to milk what they can from it, to publicize it and create headlines from it, that's just because the right is doing it more effectively than the left, because I'm on leftist platforms all the time. I recently did an interview with Karen Hunter. I've been on The Breakfast Club. I just told you about Jake Tapper. I told you I've been on MSNBC show.